Now, like always, there's always a few cards that become outliers during a generation. And that's why in today's video, I'm gonna actually be walking you through some incredibly unique illustration rares, which I expect will hold their value once the dust settles. Now, this video in particular is speaking specifically about illustration rares, not special illustration rares. Now, if you are new to the hobby and you're a little bit confused on that, like, wait, there's illustration rares and special ones, don't stress. Pokemon rarities have a reputation of being incredibly difficult to understand, right? So to make this as simple as possible, illustration rares are easier to pull from a pack, whereas special illustration rares, or commonly known as SIRs, are much harder to pull, and they also have texture on the card artworks, which makes them look much nicer and give them a bit more of a premium feel. Though, as I was saying, this video is mainly speaking about the standard illustration rares, which were introduced in the Scarlet and Violet era, and the ones that I believe will be holding their value. Now, I do believe that some of the cards that I'm going to be showing in today's video will hold their value, and I'm going to give my reasoning behind that, right? I think the Scarlet and Violet era did a lot of things right, and I sometimes feel we don't recognize just how awesome of an era we're living in right now. The artworks of this era have been second to none, and it's truly shaping up to be the greatest generation for the Pokemon TCG. Though in saying that, let's actually look at the first one right here. All right, so the first one on the list, Magikarp, and man, is it hot today. I mean, you might be thinking, oh, Phil, Singlet Phil, gosh, I've got to see that again, but believe me, brother, it is hot. Like, a lot of people are from US and Europe, and it's really cold right now for you guys, but in Australia right now, it is boiling, dude. It is so hot. But nonetheless, we're looking at the Magikarp illustration rare. Now, I do think this card in particular will become so heavily desired and so in demand. The reason for that is, and I did actually talk about this before, right? Though it kind of feels like right now with every Pokemon card that's releasing, it's just like, oh, this Pokemon card's hype. Oh, I'm going to just buy this card because it's in demand or whatever, right? This Magikarp in particular, the reason why I think it will hold value for a long time is because when it kind of came out as a chase card, it was so new, it was so fresh. A lot of people were just so excited to see a card that's not, you know, Umbreon or not Leafeon or Dragonite or one of those big heavy hitters as a chase card. It was really cool to see Magikarp get that spotlight, and I do think when the Scarlet and Violet era does close that chapter, right, when we kind of put it to bed and move on to Generation 10, I think people will really have fond memories of this Magikarp. They're interesting as well. Look at the price point for this, right? So you can see last year, I just put that into the year graph. You can actually see last year, right? This was selling for $68. It was a nothing card. It was just like, yes, it was expensive. Sorry, I shouldn't say it was a nothing card. It was still very expensive for an illustration rare. It was actually quite expensive, right? But in what I mean by a nothing card is by right now, $68 for an illustration rare, you know, not many people are being like, whoa, this is going to be a crazy expensive card. It's just like, it's whatever, it's $68, right? It's in demand, right? That's how a lot of people saw it. You can see this climbed all the way up to $149, and then it dropped down to $104. But check this out, man. Selling for $236 raw. That is so expensive for an illustration rare. That's unheard of, right? I mean, no other illustration rare even competes with this at the moment. So the fact that it's getting this price point is really unique, man. Don't underestimate this Magikarp just because it's an illustration rare and it doesn't have texture and it's not an SIR. It still is a Shinji Kanda artwork. It still has so many people that love this card, and it is Generation 1. A lot of people have fond memories of Magikarp, man. Oh, and by the way, a little bit of a cool update. I am actually going live and giving away 90 packs of battle partners on Drip Shop Live. So today's video is sponsored by Drip, and if you've never participated in one of these live stream giveaways that we've done previously, you're honestly missing out. The last one of the winners actually pulled the Umbreon Master Ball Reverse Holo. It was actually pretty hype. Though in terms for the Battle Partners live stream, it is on Wednesday, 19th of February at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. To participate, you will need a Drip account. However, if you do use the affiliate code, you do get up to a $250 credit when signing up. Sign up using the link in the description and I'll see you there. Now moving on to another really highly desired chase card, right? And it is from Twilight Masquerade, the Eevee illustration rare. And I do think, right, with Prismatic Evolutions, Eeveelutions, Evolving Skies, everyone is so Eevee crazy, and I don't think that's going to go down anytime soon. I think people are just so obsessed with Eevee. I think it's got a strong hold on a lot of people in the hobby. I think Eevee and all the Eeveelutions, they have their position in the market, and when something has become so established in the market, pretty much every subsequent chase card is going to become valuable. It's kind of like Charizard right now, right? If Charizard gets released as a top chase card, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy prophecy that it's going to become valuable. Same thing with Umbreon right now. I mean, if Umbreon gets released as a top chase card, it's always going to be expensive just because it has this self-fulfilling prophecy. And same thing with Eevee as well, and of course Eeveelutions in general. But you can see this card has also had a crazy price, kind of bit of a tumultuous journey, but nonetheless, it is rising quite high in value right now. Look at this. If I pull this into the 6-month graph, you can see this was selling at $50 at release, and it kind of found this kind of low point at $44, right? Now, I have to admit that I actually found this card to be incredibly well priced at that point. I did make a few videos about that as well. I was kind of speaking that it is an Eeveelution, you know, it's got a very unique artwork. I did think that this would rise a little bit more in value, and of course it has, right? You can see right now selling for $97. Now, that is quite expensive for an illustration rare. We cannot forget that illustration rares are easier to pull than special illustration rares, and mind you, that is actually exceeding a lot of prices for some SIRs as well, right? So maybe not the most in-demand SIRs, but still it is exceeding that. I mean, it is double easier to pull, right? Now, moving on to another one, which I think is going to really have a strong future, even when the kind of chapter of this era closes, because when the Scarlet and Violet Era chapter closes, there's going to be few cards that really stand the test of time, and I do think this Drowzee will be one of those cards. Now, I did mention this before, but because this card got released in the first base set, right? It's from base set, right? The Scarlet and Violet one. Because it got released so early on, I think people were just like, oh, it's a cool card, but I can't wait to see what's going to happen in subsequent releases. But I think as we're now approaching that kind of tail end of the Scarlet and Violet era, I think a lot of people are looking at this Drowzee and saying, wow, this was actually a highlight, man. Like when we look at all the artworks of Scarlet and Violet era, once the chapter closes, this Drowzee is going to be one of those that actually is a highlight. And it's pretty cool to say that both Magikarp and Drowzee both came out in the first 2 sets as well. And I think that's really telling of how Pokemon valued illustration rares during this period. But you can see this, the price point for this is also interesting. This was selling for $9 in August of last year, and right now selling for around 30 USD. Pretty expensive for an illustration rare, but then again, it's gonna be super unique to see where this travels over time. Also, I just want to say, if you have been enjoying this video and you'd like to stay up to date for more content, please feel free to subscribe. It's always amazing seeing new people and connecting with new people on the channel. Now, another one that I kind of think we got robbed from it not being a special illustration rare, I think this Groudon from Paradox Rift is such a cool card, man. And I really think if this was a special illustration rare, this would be in your top 5. This would be like Greninja level, right? I mean, I'm talking Greninja from Twilight Masquerade. I think this Groudon artwork is so cool, man. And you can see the price point for this as well. Selling for $105 right now, which is very expensive for illustration rare standards. But then again, Groudon, man, has such a history behind it, right? People really love Groudon. Generation 3, Hoenn Games. And don't forget, I speak about this a lot, but the fans who kind of grew up with Groudon and Kyogre, they're also coming into more adult money. So they will have the income to kind of buy their kind of favorite Pokemon cards, right? You know, other Pokemon like Yveltal and Zacian maybe haven't had that nostalgia spike to get there with where those fans have that kind of disposable income, right? But nonetheless, I do think this Groudon is going to be one to look out for in the future for sure. Now, I did kind of talk about battle partners and doing the live stream giveaway in this video, right? Though if you do want to stay up to date for future giveaway events, please feel free to join my channel's Discord server. You'll actually be able to showcase your pack pulls, and you'll also be notified for videos and events right away. The server invite is in the description of this video. Now, here is another one that's really cool, which is the Mantyke. Now, this Mantyke is super interesting, man. So this is the first time that Mantyke has been on a card artwork since 2007. Yes, that's right. I'm not joking. The last time Mantyke had a card in the TCG was 2007. It did have like a Samir's Mantyke, which was released in Japan. Now, this one isn't on the list that I think it's going to hold value indefinitely, though I have to say, if Mantyke doesn't reappear again, it may become a bit of a cult classic. I mean, fans have been wanting this card to reappear in the TCG for such a long time, and it took 17 years to see it appear again. And not only did it appear, though it got a great illustration rare artwork as well, which is super bizarre, seeing how much they avoided it. You'd think that it would just get a regular reverse or a basic holo, but no, but they actually went all in. So even though I don't think this card is going to become super valuable, I have to admit it's a pretty cool card to add to your collection because of its history. But, you know, even while I'm talking about this Mantyke, you can see in the last 3 months, this was selling for like, you know, $5.50, right now selling for $16. pretty big price increase. Now, of course, Generation 1 Pokemon are always exciting, right? Because Generation 1, you just got so many fans that span across so many different generations. But this Squirtle illustration rare from Stellar Crown definitely has the potential to maintain its position in the market once the Scarlet and Violet era closes. I mean, look at the price for this anyway. I mean, 3 months ago, this was selling for $41. This kind of card has already gone up to 77 USD. That is very good price for an illustration rare. Do I think it's going to get to that Magikarp level? I don't, because that Magikarp had a bit of a kind of, it had just so many cool things going for it. It was so unique at the time, and it's kind of held that strong point. And of course, the PSA 10 Magikarp sells for a crazy amount of money. So I think that's also pushing the price of the raw copy up. But you can see $77 for an illustration rare is quite nicely priced. Same thing when we move on to the Bulbasaur, right? The Bulbasaur and Squirtle are both from Stellar Crown, which also may push the price up for Stellar Crown as time goes on. But you can see the price point for this. This was selling for around $40 when it released, and right now selling for $64. Hasn't had a huge price increase, but definitely showing healthy growth. And I think that's important to know. I mean, instead of them going downwards and, finding even low points in the market, it's actually finding new high points in the market, right? Now, another one that I also think is going to be very iconic in terms of illustration rares is the Charmander illustration rare from Pokemon 151. The reason for that is because Charmander, I mean, the Obsidian Flames Charmander is already, going crazy in value, right? The Pokemon Center stamped version in particular. Though this card is just such a cool artwork of Charmander, and you can even see with the price points, right? Looking here, we're selling for $43 in November, right now selling for $56. But if we pull this into the year graph, you can see this card's low point was May last year of $23. It really has had a pretty strong price increase. And with how hard 151 is to find right now, there is a chance this may continue to climb. Now, another one, and it's not in terms of the price. I don't think this one we can actually look at the price point yet, but it is the Latios illustration rare from Surging Sparks. The reason for that is I kind of put this on the same level as Groudon, right? I do think Latios, again, Generation 3, pretty cool artwork, right? And I do think a lot of people love this card. I think a lot of people like Surging Sparks as well. And because of that, I do think this card has the potential to rise. It hasn't had the best price journey, right? If I pull this into the last 6 months, kind of fell to $37, then it found a low point of $34, right now selling for $41. But if we look at some of those other cards, Groudon also was at that price point as well for a long time. And then once the time kind of happened and once the dust kind of settled, it kind of went really high up in value. So same things can happen with this one. Now, one that I don't think is gonna be super expensive, but I do think there is a chance for this card to become more loved as time goes on, is the Scizor illustration rare. This Scizor is crazy, man. I mean, if I pull this into the year graph, you can see this was selling for around $3 last year. Pretty low, man. That's such a good price for such a cool illustration rare. But you can see right now selling for, $11. Pretty good price increase. And, with how hard Obsidian Flames is to get at the moment, there is a chance that this card can also climb in value. But, we're going to have to see, because the Pokemon market right now is in such an interesting position, man. Now, as much as these illustration rares are awesome and they do have some lore behind them, right, it does leave some questions on which Pokemon usually perform the best when released as a Pokemon card, and the exact 7 Pokemon that have proven to perform well can be seen right here. Within this video that's appearing on screen right now, I go over the exact 7 Pokemon which always end up becoming expensive if they are released as a Pokemon card. Click the video that's appearing on screen and I'll see you there.